other people might go through the same stuff I go through, and I want them to understand that, man, with God and have faith, man, you're gonna be okay. You just gotta keep putting one foot in front of the other. And when people say you can't do something, you just, if you read my book or read other people's books, whether it's my book, Iverson book, Stephen A, Rich Paul, anybody, any of those people's books, we all was at the same place at one time before. Even the greatest players, the greatest people the greatest people you admire, somewhere in their life, they was where you were at. And, for me, I'm telling you my story so you can know how I handle it and how I just kept one foot in front of the other, and why people in the world, I don't call them fans, I call them family, because they seen me grow up in front of their eyes, so they know these things.
He is the author of The Word of God. We have the pleasure in welcoming God Shammgod onto Hoopsology. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure. I mean, if I talk a little low, just let me know, because I just had the root canal surgery, so it's kind of swollen, but I'm fine though. But it's an honor and a pleasure to be on.
Appreciate you coming on and just gracing us with your basketball knowledge. Before we jump into the book and your career, we have a bit of a tradition on our show. We talk about like the latest topics with basketball, of course, but we delve into basketball culture, what makes the game so great. So take this question any way you want it. What is your first or favorite basketball memory?
My first basketball memory is when I was like 12, going on 13. I went to 155th Street, Rucker Park, and that was like the first time I ever really watched basketball. I was with a kid named Mason Betha, which everybody knows as Mace. And he took me up there, and we went up there on a strange day because it was the All-Star game. So on that day, I got to see like all the best players in the tournament, from Malloy Naismith, The Future, Master Rob, Dancing Doogie, Terminator, all these names, Sweet Pea, Lloyd Daniels, and Mike Boogie, Tip Dog, rest in peace, and Pookie Wilson, rest in peace. And from that day forth, I fell in love with basketball. Just the crowd, the atmosphere, so much pleasure that those basketball players gave everybody that was there. And I was a young kid looking through the fence and not knowing what I was looking at, but it was like watching Madison Square Garden, Knicks against Miami Heat, that type of atmosphere for me at a young age. Looking at that, that's what it would be an equivalence to, like a Duke versus North Carolina. And it was just so amazing just to see so many people enjoying themselves. The halftime show, Al B dancing, doing the Harlem Shake, and, cheerleaders out there dancing, doing double dutch and stuff like that. So it was just like what you see in the movies when you see Harlem in all this essence and all this rich essence with the magic.
Can you explain for our audience the basketball culture within New York? Because I always like to push this when we have a guest on that has a relationship with the culture of basketball in New York. And I don't think it's pushed among like the mainstream outlets in terms of how important New York is to the game of basketball itself. So just with your experience, you can explain just the relationship between just basketball in New York in particularly, because I think that's not discussed enough. And I think it's kind of to my opinion, the cornerstone of this modern NBA. Not only that, this modern basketball overall in 2025.
I would say it's a rich culture. I would say it's entertaining culture. It epitomized the street of basketball, and all its in every facet. Because it fused entertainment with basketball, with style, with grace. So if you don't have that, if you look at the NBA today, if you don't have those things, then the NBA the players wouldn't be as entertaining, as graceful they are now, because you know, it all started there. It all started like in the mecca of like showmanship and just having your own vision, your own artistry. And I think, I know, like me growing up being one of those kids that's seen that, it helped change my life. And, when you look at everything that's connected, When I see the Chris Pauls of the world, or T-Lus and different people that I've came encounter with through my years of basketball, and they're like, man, when I saw you play in the McDonald's All-American game, or I saw you dribble and I saw all this stuff, it just changed the way I looked at basketball, and which is such an honor for me to even go through and still be here to hear that, all these years later. But it's because of those things that makes basketball like the most unique sport in the world, and just bring everybody together. Way more than just playing basketball. It's life. It's life with a ball on the court, and you could do so many things, and you could show who you are in so many ways in this game of basketball. With this round basketball, like, you can show your personality, you can show your style, you can show your flair. And if you look at most players, um, and New York City embodied it the most, the way people play on the court is kind of how they are off the court, if you just look at it that way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So when you're putting this book together, what was the creative process like? Can you just walk us through just compiling, all of your experiences, your memories? That feels like a very just tough task to do and compile it in a book. So how did you decide what makes it in a book? How did you decide like what didn't make the cut? Like, you kind of take us through the kind of process to beginning to end and putting that together.
It was easy and hard, because you get asked questions on certain things in life that people want to know, things too that you remember, so you want to answer, when you write a book. But there's also things that I left out that I didn't know I left out until the book came out. Um, so it's just telling stories from, you want to have your story being told, and you want to tell stories of like, for me, I've been blessed with great friends in my life and great people that came through my life. So you want to tell those stories, because those same people that grace me, they are known to other people, and they have graced other people's lives. So you always want to add those stories into where you really don't have to explain everything when those stories, because the whole world know those people too. And then you want to introduce new people that touch your life, like your family members, your friends, that people don't really know. And I think that's how you come up with a great book, and even in my book, like, you're gonna have people you left out by accident that you didn't even know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have a great friend in DC named Jay. And he helped, like, he was a big brother. Well, he is a big brother to me now, and he managed my whole life when I got drafted to the Wizards, just to keep me out the streets and guided me with friendship and brotherhood. And to this day, he's like my big brother, And he didn't even make the book, which I didn't understand how I forget that. I mean, I didn't forget, but it probably wasn't a question I was asked for the book. But it's people like that, and you know, the Full and Wider family that raised me, helped raise me when I was in high school, when I first had my first son, and they were like my second moms and pops. And, I did everything with them from like the 10th grade to college, you know what I'm saying? And then to where I'm an adult, where you got the Lawrence family, that's my family, you know, and they just have so much love and affection when it comes to me. And, I wouldn't be here without that family either. You know what I'm saying? But in the book, you want to go to the beginning. You always want to go to the beginning. And then you want to go to places like you just said, what made you love basketball. So I tried to harp on all those things in the book. Like my first beginnings, when I didn't know basketball. So I tried to introduce that. And then mostly what the people want to know is, how was it growing up in the 90s in New York? And then how I got introduced to basketball and why I love it so much. So you put all those things together, and then you have your book. So that was my process.
So in 2025, you're an assistant coach with the Illinois Magic. And
Mhm.
just wondering, just you work with the current generation of players now, and just through your experience, has there been anything that has shocked you of the evolution of basketball that has occurred now? So, for instance, just the people are talking about the rise of the 3-point shot. There's different iterations of the game that's currently happening now. Is there anything that has surprised you just through just your experience, and now you're in the NBA? Has there anything that's kind of shocked you, that's kind of taken you by surprise that you didn't think that would happen in 2025 in the kind of current era of hoops, you think?
I would say all of it shocks me, but it don't shock me, if that makes sense, right? So I believe, like we just said, that New York is the mecca of basketball, and I believe that, well, I know 25 years ago, 30 years ago, the way that people play in the NBA is now is how New York people grow up playing, right? So like me growing up in New York, basketball always was positionless. You know what I'm saying? Like in New York, because in New York everybody can dribble, everybody can post up, everybody can run fast. So like whoever got the ball, they just brung the ball up the court. I remember playing young and we used to have the ball and we'd just hold it out so everybody could spread out until someone guard you real close. And because there was no shot clock, so if you scored like say if you was up 10-6 and the coach felt you was dominant, the coach would like hold the basketball because there's no shot clock. So then everybody has to go guard someone. So if you fast forward, like you said, if you fast forward right now, that's 5 out. That's what we play in the NBA. 5 out. Everybody open up the court, and the person that could dribble through everybody, make passes, stuff like that. So we've been playing like that. So that's why I think it was like when people ask like how I got caught in the between is because when I was coming up, if you was dribbling like the way I dribble, it was too fancy. It was this, it was that. Um, the way I grew up, point guards did everything. Point guards did the shooting, the passing, post up, whatever in New York, because the difference in New York and it's so funny to this day, the difference between New York and other places, New York just wasn't walking around growing 7-footers. So everybody from New York essentially is a guard. So then that's how you play. So then if you look at when Golden State was at their peak and Draymond is the center and he's at 6'8", 6'9", whatever, that's what we grew up playing against. Wasn't until I got to college and I started seeing like 7-footers, 7'1s, or and when I played NBA, you got Shaq, David Robinson, Patrick Ewing, Keem Olajuwon, all these people. And then it's like, okay, the point guard pass, cut through, and be able to knock down threes and stuff like that. But when we're coming from New York, the point guard did everything. He did all the dribbling. Where you'd be like, man, that's why he was like, New York guards dribble so much, this, and that. But if you look at the way the NBA is now, and why people wonder why I guess I'm irrelevant now is because when the kids look back from this era, I played just how they played now. So the only thing that shocks me is that they allow basketball to become this. Because when I was playing, they was like, no, that's not basketball. You can't do that. Don't do this. Don't dribble like that. Don't do that. So in my head, when I was coming up, they was so much against it that I didn't think it would ever get to this point where now it's out of here.
So why do you think that now that the league has embraced the style? You just mentioned that you didn't think this day would be possible, just in terms of just the infusion of the style you grew up with. So what forced that change, you think?
I believe it forced the change of the same thing I fell in love with at Rucker Park, right? So it's the entertainment part of it, because it is still a basketball business, right? So the more you can put people in the seats, the more you got people wanting to watch, and then the evolution of technology, right? So then you have the phones and you have all these apps and stuff like that. So now you can watch it whenever you want. When I was coming up, it used to come on Sundays. You just watch one game a week, and then You did all that, and then as I got older, kids was normally outside most of the time. So they didn't really catch NBA games and stuff like that because you didn't have cell phones. But now that you have a cell phone, you can take the NBA anywhere you want in the world.
Yeah.
So the the best thing for the game now is the evolution, is the entertainment, is the great players, is is it being multiple generational players from, even if you look at the evolution from players from other countries to here now, to whereas the last, I think, 6 years or whatever, the MVP was from overseas or something.
Yeah.
So like that could never happen in my era. You know what I'm saying? So even if you look at the way the dream team and things were, it was so like one-sided. But because of the evolution of technology, because of the evolution of entertainment, now, whereas overseas soccer was the entertainment, now it's basketball.
Yeah.
And then these players get to get on apps like Instagrams and things like that and connect with the fans personally. Then of course is just going to keep going up, which is an amazing thing and a wonderful thing. Just like in life, everything has to evolve. You know.
So what, and this might be an unfair question, but you're at ground zero of the highest level of basketball globally. So do you see anything that, in terms of the way basketball is played, do you see kind of what the future could look like in the next 5 or 10 years in terms of kind of the evolution of the style you played? Like, do you see anything that might be hinting and stuff that will be commonplace in the next, few years here that is just kind of in the baby stages of now that you might be seeing either in the NBA or college ranks or even, on the park or whatever?
Yeah, I believe I think it'd be more I think high school and college would be more like overseas, like because you got NIL and things like that. So I believe that most players in high school will be in prep schools instead of regular high schools. Like when I grew up, or Catholic schools, they would be in prep schools. Um, because prep schools is more like overseas, where it's like a basketball school. I mean, even though you still do work, but you spend majority of the day doing basketball.
Yeah.
So I think it would transition to more like that. And I think, just like everything in life, everything goes in circles. So I don't think it's so much about the evolution. I think more about the mixture of the marketing and stuff, that evolution. But far as playing, I think it was just always go back in circles, right? So when Golden State was playing, it was like, oh, you can't really have a traditional center. You can't have that. We got, the center got to be able to shoot threes, dribble, and all that. But I think if you look at the last 2 years, they're wanting more traditional centers that can post up and stuff like that. And if you look at this last year, I would say, and one would say, the traditional point guard is about to come back. Like they want somebody that can run the team and pass, because you don't want two offensive guards running the team when you have other players too. You need somebody that set the table and things like that. So I believe that's going to come back around. And I just know basketball, it's always been in a good place. And that's the thing, even before I played, basketball was all guards. When you look at Earl Monroe, Pistol Pete, Tiny Archibald, all those is, if you had a movie and you just switch their names with the point guards of today, they'd probably be the same, right? So like Tiny Archibald led the league in scoring and assists at 6'1". And then after that, Will Chamberlain, all other people came, and then it transferred. So I believe it just goes in circles. And I believe when I played, I was just caught in the circle of big men, of great, great big men in that era. So, and then like you said, see now the evolution of the point guards, the league guards, and now you see the centers are coming back, and now the point guards will come back. So I just believe that as far as the marketing and all the other stuff, I think that would be an evolution. Just like when you see TV and you see high def, and when we was there, it was only black and white, and now it's color. Now it's all this other stuff. Now it's AI. So I believe those things would change, but I believe the players will always remind you of another player, right? So it's like I tell my kids today. It's kind of like the same thing when you say the effect. It's kind of the same thing. Like I tell my kids, I'll be like, "Oh, when I was coming up, Christopher Reeves was Superman. It's the same Superman movie. It's just more special effects, more of this, but it's it's the same story, right? But it's just a different actor. So I believe that's how this is. Like we're all different actors of somebody before us, right? Or we gonna always gonna remind somebody that was before us. Like I honestly believe that.
No, completely true. Um, Second to last question, and I've always wanted to ask somebody who's very deeply involved with the league.
Mhm.
From a fan perspective, what do you think fans should appreciate when they're watching the NBA specifically? Because I think a lot of fans, especially in this age of social media, they get caught up on just criticism and just not really, I think, appreciating the game. I think it's a lot of the snap judgments, and I don't think the joy is really portrayed enough, and
Yeah.
not only social media, but just in just national media overall. What do you think like the media and fans should be paying attention to when they're watching the NBA game? Like that goes like not appreciated by the fan enough that they should be watching for when they're either in the arena or just watching the game on TV, you think?
For me, I think that's the easy one. I think they should appreciate that nobody is trying to do the wrong thing, right? Like these people put in hard work to be where they're at that point, whether it's coaches, whether it's trainers, whether it's athletes, whether it's the referees. I know some athletes get bad rap, some trainers get bad rap, but they should really appreciate, because the one thing I don't think people appreciate enough is what did someone else do to get here, right? And what they've been through in their life. So it's hard when you tell someone, well, you're not worth this, or this ref sucks, or this team is not, working hard, or they're not doing this. Trust me, everybody that mostly step on the court wants to win. The ref wants to get it right. They don't want to screw people over,
Yeah.
you know. The coach is not trying to screw players over, right? But what they underestimate is at the time that is happening so fast, everybody's just trying to use their best judgment at the time, right? Whether it's coaches with players, whether it's players in the game passing or not passing or shooting, and whether it's referees got the right angle or not the right angle. Everybody's trying to do the right thing at the right time, but everybody thinks differently, right? So when it goes so fast and you have all these different opinions, but everybody's trying to get it right in their own head, in their own right, they're right. And I think sometimes, not all the time, because I think some fans get it,
Yeah.
but I think that, most of the time people just don't put themselves in other people's shoes when it comes to basketball or any other thing. It's just like a writer with a player. If a player is not trying to help the writer understand him, then you can't say you're misunderstood,
Yeah.
right? That makes absolutely no sense. And it's more of like, even with players and fans, yeah, fans, you have to understand that this person is a real person, right? But then players, you have to understand also that you work so hard to get famous so people can notice you, right? So you see how those things, so the fan is right, but the player is right too.
Yeah.
So I think if we just take time out to try to put ourselves in other people's shoes, not just for the cameras, I'm talking about just in life in general, I think besides basketball and all else, I think just life in general would be better for all of us, right? So I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes no matter what. And I think that's why I connect with players so well, and connect with organizations so well, because it's never about me in the moment, in those moments. I always try to, when I have a conversation with anybody, whether it's my family, my friends, players, coaches, GMs, I always try to think about what they're going through before I think about what I'm going through.
No, I agree. I think the world would be a better place if people took that philosophy for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
because we all complicated.
yeah,
We all say
totally.
that person. We always say, "Oh, that person is complicated. That person is hard to work with." But until you understand you're complicated too,
Yep.
then you can't help the situation.
No, it's an excellent point. No, it's true. You speak the truth. Uh, Last question for you. When people get done reading the book, when they purchase it, when it's all said and done, what is the lasting impression do you want the reader to have when they finish learning about your story?
Just what I just said a few minutes ago. Like, I just want them to know I'm saying my truth. Other people could see it differently, and I wouldn't disagree because everybody had their own truth. But I want them just to appreciate the journey and not be judgmental of the journey. Or if people know me and they be like, man, why you left this out? Why you say this? Or why you mentioned this person, didn't mention that person? Like, the book is not for judgment. It's just to read the book, get the story. And if you like the story, enjoy the story. I didn't do it for like most people do things in life to get dissected, which it probably was because that's just human nature. But it's it's not for that because everything in the book is my truth. And everybody in the book, I mentioned every story I told was out of love. Right. So like people might read it and be like, oh, in the beginning, him and his father wasn't that. My father is my best friend right now because I went through that stuff. Because, in the beginning, I didn't understand like how he can like leave his family or something like that, or how he could go to jail and things like that. But when I talk now and we speak, this is like me and was talking the other day on the phone, and I was like, yeah, at the time I couldn't understand, and I was like, but if you don't go to jail, I probably want to wind up in jail. But because I saw you in jail, it was no option for me ever to go to jail. Right. So you missing those part made me more of like growing up. Like if I have kids, I'm going to be like this with my kids. Right. And then like now he's a amazing grandfather. Right. But like I told him the other day, I don't ever want him to feel like he have to beat himself up because if those things don't happen to him, then my thing could have been totally different. Because like I said, when I started off, I didn't start off as a basketball player. I started off wanting to run the street and wanting to hang out. And, even though it was like 10 and 11, I'm just like, I didn't think, like I said, I didn't think about basketball till I was 13. So I moved to Harlem. When I was in Brooklyn, I would probably grew up fighting because I was fighting then. I was fighting. My father trained boxers. So like I was into fighting. I was into that. I wasn't into sports like basketball and stuff like that. But when all the stuff happened with him, it just changed my perspective on everything and it curved it. So, he had to struggle for me to walk. I like to say it that way. And like I said, I just want people to know because other people might go through the same stuff I go through. And I want them to understand that, man, with God and have faith, man, you're going to be okay. You just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And when people say you can't do something, you just could, if you read my book or read other people's books, whether it's my book, Iverson book, Stephen A, Rich Paul, anybody, any of those people's books, we all was at the same place at one time before. Even the greatest players, the greatest people the greatest people you admire, somewhere in their life, there was where you were at. And, for me, I'm telling you my story so you can know how I handle it and how I just kept one foot in front of the other and why people in the world, I don't call them fans, I call them family because they seen me grow up in front of their eyes, so they know these things are true.
God, thank you very much for spending the time. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience be aware of where you're located on social media? You have any upcoming
Yeah,
projects?
we're great. We're a great team. We're young, but we great. We got a great coach in Jamal Mosley. We got a great organization, the Orlando Magics. And I'm just happy to be a part of it and just ready to get started this year. I'm happy also I'll be on the East Coast more where I'm from. So that's good too. So I'll get to see the Knicks more, Atlanta more, even the Wizards more. But yeah, I think we got a great thing going down there. And I know we're going to play our butts off and work as hard as we can. You got great young superstars and Paulo Bencaro, and Franz Wagner, Devin Baines, AB, Anthony Black. So, and Wendell Carter. We got who else? Tyus Jones. So like, we ready to go, and we ready to put in that work, and we ready to, shock the world. And I'm just happy to be a part of it, and I'm honored that Coach Mosley and the whole organization believe in me that much. I'm at God Shammgod 12 on IG, and the real Shammgod on, is it called X now, or
I
is
think, yeah, I switch back and forth all the time these days. Yeah.
yeah, and shout out to Providence College. I want them to watch them this year. I think, coaching them got something good going up there. So hopefully, that works out too.
Appreciate the time. Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for having me so much.